I feel compelled to follow up on this story because yesterday during the longer video that I posted when we broke down all the different crime scene photos that were out there, I figured, hey, maybe something was happening at the comedy club beforehand. Maybe something would probably have to come out of that because it really looked like nothing outside of some abstract philosophy that maybe he hit his head on the shower, maybe Bob just slipped in the shower and smacked the back of his head. That would kind of make a little bit of sense, but then also didn't expect anybody from the comedy club to come forward a few days later. And then, okay, some audio, which, again, all of this stuff was supposed to be sealed, and it was sealed by a judge in Orange County, and then it's starting to leak out. What is trying to be uncovered here by just, I don't know, amateur journalists, okay, by just a bunch of speculators that are out there? This is getting wild, and I don't want to continue to start beating this drum, okay, and beating a dead horse theoretically by just covering this stuff over and over again. There's plenty of woke Hollywood channels that just continue to say something about, oh, Kathleen Kennedy's going to get fired from Star Wars. I have inside sources that say this, and oh, no, it looks like, oh, she just got a contract extension. That means the death of Star Wars. And then the next day, oh, new Star Wars trailer. It's like, okay, listen, you just did pick a side, stupid. But when there's more like tangible information that comes out, you guys like this stuff, it performs relatively well on the channel. So and plus I'm starting to get interested in this because of the cover-up aspect of it, which is just really becoming more and more prevalent when it shows up, especially like this. So Bob Saget's showrunner reveals he told her he didn't feel good. His hearing was off and he had a sore throat as she observed him and had to talk himself up just before taking the stage for his final performance. Okay, so he was recovering from the coof. Okay, that was noted, and that was also in the autopsy as well, but he was well enough to perform. Okay, he was well enough to perform beforehand, and okay, you have a sore throat, that could have something to do with it. Okay, that was one of the symptoms of all of the strains that are out there. Okay, that's all fine. But your hearing being off, that would be consistent with head trauma. Just saying that. Okay. So, Bob Saget's crew told backstage at the Ponte Vedra Concert Hall in Florida that he was struggling to get over long COVID and didn't feel good shortly before taking the stage of what would be his last performance of his life, Daily Mail has learned. Newly released audio of interviews conducted by Orange County Sheriff's Office in the days after the comedian's shocking death earlier this year and obtained by the Daily Mail revealed for the first time the star's health worries on the eve of his death. So, okay, let's extrapolate this out a little bit further. Okay, he's dealing with long COVID symptoms which manifest in a whole host of different ways. Okay, it's either just a long bout of mild symptoms like a dry cough that lingers for months on end. Okay, it's sluggishness and lethargy that just you can't overcome for weeks or months, or like some people struggle with it. I've heard some reports, even though it's like really unquantifiable and you can't really nail it down, that it's lasted for like a year or something like that. Okay, again, I'm not a specialist and nobody's an expert on this stuff, even though some people claim to be, but that's not me when it comes to this. I'm just saying, okay, cool. He might have been experiencing some symptoms, which obviously, okay, if he has a sore throat, and this is like, okay, cool, because all of the comedy clubs and all of the theaters, even in certain states that remained open, they weren't hosting performances, so prolonged talking, like an hour-long set, okay, if you're not used to just talking consistently all the time, you could manifest a sore throat, okay, that would make sense. Or was that one of those intermittent symptoms that flared up for him with his battle with long COVID, okay? But the only one that doesn't seem consistent is that his hearing was off. That, I don't really know. And unless, yeah, he also manifests symptoms that made him lightheaded and dizzy, that would presuppose a fall. I don't really know. I don't really know. And again, we're doing a lot of speculating here, but all of this stuff is just so weird. Saget was found dead. Yes, we already know that. January 9th, after mysteriously banging his head on the suite at Orlando's Ritz-Carlton, a 2-hour drive from Ponte Vedra Beach venue where he last performed. His death had been ruled an accident. Yeah, but they also said, and that was the police who also said that he banged his head on the headboard, which turned out to be basically a padded wall, so I don't really know. Now the newly released audio reveals that showrunner Rosalie Cocci, 37, told investigators that Saget had complained of ill health in the lead up to his last performance and seemed to be talking himself up until he felt okay. She said he had a long-term COVID and it was taking his body a long time to get over it. Yeah, and that's his last tweet that's there, which is just kind of weird and ominous. The final selfie from the valet, we've already been over this, and that's a picture of the showrunner, Rosalie, there. He said that his hearing had been off, and that was the case that night. He was asking the sound guy to turn everything up. And he said he had been sick the night before. His hearing was off. He had a sore throat. He was happy. He had lozenges on stage. Saget tested positive for the coof and the post-mortem, despite having reportedly recovered from the illness a few weeks before his death. According to Cocci, I did hear him say, "I don't feel good, but I'm ready to do the show. That's what I do this for." He seemed to be talking himself up, but she said, by the time that he took to the stage and he performed for 2 hours, he seemed okay. He was cracking jokes. Well, you would hope so. If he was up there for an hour doing his routine, you'd kind of hope that something would be, giving off the appearance of jokes. Just saying. He wasn't sweating. He didn't miss a beat. Nothing slurred. He came out very energetic. Both Cocci and others who worked with Saget that night recalled how happy he appeared and how minimal the star's demands were. A copy editor would be great. Richard Stanford, 43, production coordinator for St. Augustine, Florida, recalled the only items that in Saget's rider were Diet Coke, regular Coke, diet sugar-free Red Bull sandwiches had been on the list but were cut last minute. That's nice. Okay, so again, just a non-confrontational guy. So throwing out the whole idea that something might have happened. And again, maybe there was a slip and fall. Okay, maybe he was lightheaded because apparently, at least from the reports that we're hearing here, was that he was at his worst prior to his performance. And if he was complaining... and if he noted, I wouldn't necessarily say he was complaining because that's just being characterized that he noted that his hearing was off. Maybe if your hearing's off, that refers to some sort of inner ear issue, and then he'd manifest a balance issue, and then, maybe a slip and fall happens there at the theater. It goes unreported because, he's just kind of an unassuming guy who doesn't really ask for a lot, just wants to put on a show to a bunch of people who showed up for said performance. Would that make sense? It makes as much sense as what the police put out and say, "Oh, he slipped and fell. Okay, you don't believe the headboard? Maybe the carpet." And it's like, again, just give us the full story, okay? We stop asking questions if you're just straight up and honest with us and not sealing all the photographs and not sealing all the evidence and then just finding ways for stuff to leak out. And it's very odd, to say the least. Stanford recalled chatting with Saget for about an hour or so after his show ended and told investigators that the star had shown him and a few others a sizzle reel for a show he was working on. He was excited, he said, the prospect of a documentary he was working on and due to film a Netflix comedy special, Stanford said. The magic was there again. Oh, that's just very sad. His colleague Kevin Stone, 44, vice president of the Forum Theater, Jacksonville, and the man who booked him to perform at Ponte Vedra that night described Saget as high on life. No longer high on coke, though. Those are old jokes that he would tell himself in much more graphic detail. If you haven't seen his stand-up routine, you probably should. It's very funny. Couldn't have been happier and couldn't imagine doing anything else. There really wasn't a nicer guy. And that's also why I'm very interested in this story, because nobody, I don't know, it's pretty hack to say, but nobody has a bad word to say about him. Okay. Literally. It's every once in a while, especially because this happened, January 9th. Okay. By now you'd have some stories that, maybe he was an asshole somewhere over here, or, he was a little bit of a diva beforehand. And it's some of his old colleagues might be just leaking out stories that he was demanding on stage or he was hard to work with, but you never heard anything from that back in the day. You never heard any of that now. Even it's just people are either trying to move on or get to the bottom of the situation, and it's just sad. And I think the family deserves a conclusive answer, and I don't want to say that they're in on it, and maybe that's why they want to start covering everything up, but I'm sure that they probably have Maybe they have a little bit more information. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're asking these same questions. I don't really know. It's none of my prying. It's just my mind's kind of going wild on this topic, and it seems like your guys is as well. So till we have any more information, and again, I'm not even going to put a date on this or anything like that, because I highly anticipated yesterday's video to be like the last of this for a long time, but here we are again. But with all of that said, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. Why don't you follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.